So in this week's video, I'm going to show you how you can risk less and pocket more on your accumulators without using Acca Edge. Sounds a bit bizarre, doesn't it? But I promise you, this is true. To explain why, you need to understand exactly how Acca Edge is calculated. Follow along and I'll share the numbers with you here on screen and reveal some better options for anyone that's considering an accumulator bet. Whilst also highlighting a couple of other bits like how you can avoid getting rinsed by accumulator cash outs. For God's sake, whatever you do, don't use cash outs on accumulators via a betting app. So Acca Edge is just another layer to football accumulators that's pitched by Betfair as a way of saving your stake when a single leg lets you down. It applies to accumulators with selections 3 or more across multiple sports and boasts your stake back as cash, unlike other operators. Essentially, it's an enhanced accumulator insurance. But like all insurances, it's corporate robbery. Let's look at the numbers with an example to show you how Acca Edge is calculated. Using the Betfair Sportsbook, I'm going to select 3 different singles triggering the Acca Edge facility, providing it's not an each way bet, free bet credit or starting at SP, something that they don't allow. To keep the example super simple, I'm going to select 3 selections at a price of evens, which is obviously 2.0 in decimals. So the first 3 bets that come up here at 2.0 are the over 2.5 goals on Brighton Villa, Leicester to win, and over 2.5 goals on Newcastle Brighton. With a £10 stake as our example, that's 2.0 times 10 is 20, times 2.0 is 40, times 2.0 is 80. So the total return is £80, meaning the overall odds for this accumulator are 8.0 in decimals or 7 to 1 in fractional odds. Now you see that Betfair is telling us that my account is stake restricted and they don't allow me to place bets of more than a fiver, but more importantly, the Acca Edge is available at revised odds of 5.0 in decimals or 4 to 1 in fractions. Although the stake would be refunded after all markets are settled if just one of them falls short. Now think about that for 1 second. They save paying out £30 on the accumulator no matter what happens, but you get £10 back if only one leg lets you down. The odds are reduced from 7 to 1 in fractional odds to 4 to 1, which is almost half. Worse still, if we calculate and compare the first 2 legs of this accumulator, you can see that at evens they represent a payout of 3 to 1. Not to mention, they're already applied their value margin to all 3 of these bets as singles before you even added them to your accumulator slip in the first place, which multiplies their margin in the process. It's a tap-tap boom for Betfair and a tap-tap skim for the player. Now, I realise a lot of viewers like an accumulator anyway, and not everyone is looking to bet professionally, but either way, it's important to understand these things so you can risk less and get better returns from your bets, which takes me on to another important point: accumulator cash outs. I'll keep it brief. Like Acca Edge, bookies apply extortionate margins to cash outs because they can. Once you've kicked off an accumulator with them, it's highly likely that you won't go anywhere else. But you really should. Prime example being the several Leicester City fans who bet on their team to win the Premier League at 5,000 to 1 in 2016 before cashing out at horrible odds. If they had cashed out their bets manually on the exchange, they would have had tens of thousands of pounds extra profit for exactly the same bet. It just shows how the bookies were still winners even though they'd lost in this instance. So don't be tempted by sportsbooks to cash out. So now you understand what's going on, how can you get more value from your accumulators? I'll explain by sharing 3 tips for placing football accumulators that are guaranteed to leave you in a better financial position over the long term if you follow them. Now the first one might be the most undesirable, but you should place your accumulator legs individually on the exchange. I know there's a couple of problems with this. It's more time consuming, it's a bit frustrating, and if you're doing an accumulator on a Saturday afternoon between several football matches that are playing at the same time, obviously you can't do that. But at least know and understand the logic, and when you're placing accumulators over a longer period of time on different outcomes, place them individually as singles on the exchange. Get the enhanced price, get the enhanced value, you'll have more profit that will then roll over onto the next bet to ensure that you have more profit over the longer term. Now the second one is probably the most useful one to the majority of people that will be watching this video, both recreationally and more interested in actually making money, which is to use a hybrid approach. Use the sportsbook to place your accumulator if that's what you prefer to do instead of placing them as singles, and then look at placing your accumulator insurance or part cash out on the exchange as it's happening, because you'll get the real bet's market value when you place that late, instead of some crazy option that the bookmakers are offering you, much like Acca Edge. So in that example, you could place your £10 lay bet once the first legs come in or once the second legs come in, and you'll have more value in your pocket, which obviously means more profit. And also that option allows you more flexibility on how you want to play your accumulator whilst getting that enhanced value, because things change on pitch sometimes, or you know, during a race, whatever you're doing. Things change between the legs and you may want to rethink your accumulator position. Now the third is probably a big one for everybody, which is placing manual cash outs. Now you need to understand how to do the calculation for manual cash outs if you've placed a sportsbook accumulator, which I'll talk you through now. If we go back to that previous example, we had 3 legs. Say the first 2 legs have come in and our third one is, you know, it's playing on our mind a little bit, we've been a bit anxious and we want to cash out our position. Ordinarily, if you place the cash out, they will offer you a horrendous price. If you were to come back to that example, the third leg is at 2.0. We know the potential winnings is £80 for the entire accumulator. So what you do is you take the £80, you divide it by the current market value, 2.0, which gives us 40. And so we know £40 should be our lay figure on that third selection to cash out our accumulator for £40 either way. So you get £40 from the lay bet if that bet should win, or £80 total from the entire accumulator if the whole thing comes in, minus the £40 that you laid off, cancelling each other out, leaving yourself £40 in your pocket. Therefore, you've successfully cashed out, instead of taking that horrendous cash out value that the sportsbook would have offered you, which would probably more likely be something around about £25. Additionally, one thing to bear in mind here is if you're placing the lay bets on the exchange to cash out your position, you're liable to pay commission on that side of the bet if it should then go on to win. So in this example, if the accumulator didn't come through, you win the £40 on the exchange in terms of lay bet, you're liable to pay commission. If you're paying something like 2%, that's only going to be 80p in that given example. So it's not a lot of money, but it's worth bearing in mind. Sometimes also you can get 0% promotional commission rates on the exchanges. But the main thing to bear in mind here is always place your hedge bets and cash outs on the exchange, because you get the real market value. Essentially, you're doing the same thing, you're just getting a better price for it, and which is really important if you're looking to make your betting pay. You see, the thing is, becoming consistently profitable only happens when you can see and measure a bet's value accurately. And in this video here, I'll show you how that's done, including an example of me doing it. So don't ignore it if you really want to win. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe.